the meeting in order, please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Calvegas?
Here.
Mr. Caucus?
Here.
Mrs. Passio? Here. Mr. White?
Here.
Mrs. Kelly? Here. Mr. Root?
Here.
Mr. Wood?
Here.
Mr. Bayshore?
Here.
And Mr. Root.
Okay. Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the clerk in the following manner. Posted on the bulletin board at the Borough Clerk's office on January 7th, 2013, and emailed to the retrospect and courier post on January 7th, 2013. If we can just skip for just a second, I wanted to bring up Mr. Ola, only because the new members of council, just to let everybody know, we only found this out last night. I mean, unless, Andrew, would you like to introduce and tell us what happened so we all know?
My name's Andrew Viola. I'm with Ragnes Albano Viola up the street. As you know, my senior partner is Sam Ragnes. He's the municipal prosecutor. He's just recently been appointed to the bench through the Senate, so he's going to Gloucester County to serve as a judge. That means a couple things. He's leaving our firm. It's a bittersweet moment, but it also means he can no longer be your municipal prosecutor. I've been the alternate prosecutor here in the past. I'm currently the prosecutor of Woodland Borough. I've also served in Collingswood, so I'm hoping you'll look favorably upon me as the successor prosecutor to finish out the balance of Sam's term, and God willing, going forward. So I appreciate your consideration.
And Andrew's also, you covered last night.
Yes.
And until it's confirmed, we think that Sam should be pretty quick, but we have another court coming up. So I think we'll get a resignation letter from Sam at some point.
Certainly within the next week, I think he has to do that. And then I suppose just if you're willing, a resolution to appoint me as a successor prosecutor, that's the feeling of the council. And then I'll take it from here.
We appreciate you stopping by. I just wanted to make sure all members of the council knew that you also been working for us. You were here last night.
Right, that's right.
And I don't know if everyone had an opportunity to meet you.
Well, I appreciate your time, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Way to go, Amy.
Okay.
I didn't protest.
Yes, that was his part. So what we can move right to new business. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to review. Oh, okay. Okay, so please review the minutes. That'll be the first thing on our agenda for the council meeting on the 2nd. Public hearing for ordinance 1309. If everyone wants to just review this quickly. Should be in the packet.
I didn't put it in the packet, but I didn't see this.
Okay, just want to review those so everyone knows.
09 is the zoning application, the zoning fee, jointly charged.
It's the $25 for residential and restricted for commercial.
1310 is the composition of the police department.
Any other questions about that? 1311?
1311 is the appropriate compensation for the position of Clean Communities Coordinator and who they report to. That's according to whatever the grant allows. And 1312 is the same thing, only for the Alliance Coordinator. Jenny Bennett.
She reports to the public safety director.
They were never paid before.
The clean communities was always paid.
I know the clean committee.
The municipal was not, but the
No.
program does allow for a stipend. And we're just going to
Oh, I
follow.
was just wondering because it was never paid before.
Yeah, but it used to be the mayor had done that in the past. I think.
No,
No?
no.
Okay, well, who did it last year?
That wasn't it.
Okay, so, but since we're not.
I was just questioning.
Yeah, no, the idea is,
When I-
we don't have to do it. If it was a member of council who did take it on, but this at least has an ordinance that allows us the ability to do it. Even in the past, members of council have taken on clean communities. But since we have.
Oh, I have clean communities. You know, it's Alliance.
This is Alliance.
That's right.
And I think this year we have a 3-year plan. Okay, 1313?
That's the establishing the position of the town clerk in front office.
Okay.
14 is the salary range for the Clean Communities Coordinator, Municipal Alliance Coordinator, and the account clerk.
Okay, and you have a raffle license that we'll be doing. Oakland Cougars.
They're holding a basket auction at the Philly Diner
Oh,
to benefit their organization. So because it's in Runnemede, it has to have the fund.
okay. Discussion of shared service agreement with the DMV for police services. I don't know if anybody, were copies of the contract sent out to the, basically just to get everybody, for the past, I would say, 5 years, 6 years, maybe a little longer, the Borough of Runnemede has provided police security service at the DMV in Runnemede. The Attorney General sends us a contract. It basically outlines what the hours that they want and what they're going to pay for it. And I do believe that the solicitor and the administrator have looked at this, and it's basically the same contract from the previous year, right? And all we have to do, and what we could do, if you could, maybe email it to the members of council, so they can at least review it, and then just take a quick look at it. It just basically establishes what I said. And we
The
can,
money hasn't changed.
the money hasn't changed.
The money never changed.
And then we would just, we would approve it next week. Must have been loud for the judge. Can you hear me? We did have court last night, correct?
Yeah, you have to turn it down a little bit.
So we would approve it now on Tuesday, and then the mayor would sign it. A resolution for grant for 100% tax exemption for a vet.
That's a recommendation from our assessor. Anyone who qualifies for that would have to apply to our assessor, and the assessor approves that, and they are exempt from paying property taxes. They would have had to have an injury that was caused by something within their service in the country.
I believe that's moving
It is
forward.
going forward.
Yes, it's prospective.
It is not on this.
There's been discussion in the past on that.
Correct, and I believe that there's,
I can go back.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, just to jump on this just for a second, is it was brought to one of the committee meetings was, there was a question of how do we keep track of this? Typically, if a vet buys a home, he'll apply and get the same as a senior, even something as trivial as a handicap parking space. I think this council has to look at the fact that we can have some, maybe look into a mechanism. What if the vet moves out of town? What if the handicap parking spot is no longer needed? What if the senior moves out of town and someone else takes over? What typically happens, there's a lag period, correct? That Joyce has said what happened is the title company will call and say, they pay no taxes. And that's how we typically have caught it in the past.
That's how we collect, that's how we find out about all the veterans deductions, the senior deductions. When a home is sold, we usually get a check-in for the new owner. And then we'll see there's been a change of hands. And they're supposed to have found out ahead of time whether there was a senior or a deduction on the property. That doesn't always happen, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, you have an inspection process, sales that you want to do.
We do have a CO process.
Right, so that would trigger it, at least from the point of view of transfer of ownership of property, so you should coordinate
There's a way we-
with the way, that could be cross-referenced, whoever's doing that, be cross-referenced with these exemptions. Parking and stuff, then it's another issue. But on this, and I don't,
Is that the disabled? Or is it any that is disabled?
no, it has to be a level, it has to be a level of disability, and the disability has to be on front.
It has to be 100% disabled.
100%.
I just was wondering if the man, if he had a good job, hey, I know, which is
Oh, I don't know the
true.
criteria.
Yeah, that's what I wanted
You
to
can be
know.
disabled. But, and
Service connected.
looking at the resolution for this, I mean, 6/11/13 is,
That's the date we applied to Brian. And that's what Brian uses as the date.
all right, so you're gonna, I mean, assuming his taxes are paid up, currently you're gonna owe him a couple bucks, because he's paid through June 30th, and he paid
Well, whatever it is. right
Yeah,
Do
now.
a refund back.
Yeah, I'm just, so when that comes up 2 meetings from now.
Well, no, that's a refund.
You have citizens in the back, you're right, you're wrong.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to know if that was going to be classified, you know, somewhere in there.
These are things we have to look at and keep in mind. We have a first reading for an amendment to Chapter 95 that adds $250 to each property maintenance lien. This, of course, was brought about because the Public Works Department is charged with cutting the grass and maintaining property. So what this does is, and if I'm correct me if I'm right, it's $250 each time we go out.
Yes.
Yeah, so-
Yes.
So it's every time we go out, it's $250 plus any labor and labor costs.
Yes. It's in your packet under ordinance 1315. And I also removed the secretary of the Board of Health, which we no longer have, from 95.2 and 95.4. And then I just added to the cost of Dunbar's taxes, $250. Len, if you have a more legal friendly way to say, add to paragraph, it's probably at the end of your packet, 1315. It's in the back.
I'm getting there, okay.
If you have a better way of saying that, anybody else?
So we're cleaning up a couple
Yeah,
things
that's,
also.
that's what we're doing, that's what you're doing, it's fine, you're fine.
So everyone seems okay with that?
Should
then?
we
Yes,
live-
just
should we
this
live-
to vacant homes?
This is any time, it's not necessarily vacant
Not
homes.
necessarily.
If they've been cited and they refuse to maintain their properties, and they are cited by our code enforcement official, he, after 30 days, and then send the,
What is it, 30 days?
I think it's 30 days.
It's 30 days.
Yeah, so it's a very long time.
Straighten up whatever the problem is.
They are given an opportunity to clean it up. And typically, though, Pat, it is houses.
Right.
I think that's our biggest, right?
We'll throw it out there for houses that have people in them and they're just refusing to maintain the property. And I say, well, good court, therefore we have to come in and
Sure.
do this.
Some towns are charging $500.
Yes.
Right off the bat.
Absolutely.
So hopefully we'll get a little
But
bit
this will
of,
be every time.
Absolutely. And
So,
we were very,
and you have to remember, some of
Each
these
time.
homes are
Okay.
mowed every couple of weeks, they go out and mow the property, so that'll be.
hopefully, like, it'll give them an incentive if they're then going to move the house out, like, move it along and get it.
They'll bring
or at least have somebody to maintain it.
And that is the big problem, the houses that are mortgages. If the person abandons the home, the mortgage company doesn't care about it, a little $90 lien or $100 lien, so they let it go. So then 2 weeks later, Public Works is back again. Maybe this would give them more of an incentive to.
What's the typical charge on a house?
John bases it on FEMA charges and it's
$180 maybe.
maybe.
So it's going to go from 180 to closer to
Or
250, 500 dollars.
250, then.
250.
Right.
250.
Exactly. It's going to be the 180 with the 250 on top.
So it will be about $500
That's what I
when it
said,
comes
yeah, when it comes down to it,
And
yeah.
that's what it needs
So
to be.
$500 a cutting,
And
hopefully.
each time you do it, it's going to go up more.
At their stage. Okay, so we also have a resolution to authorize the execution of release of agreement waste management contract. Waste management, we have to pass a resolution to authorize the mayor to sign a letter that says that we're getting out of our contract, and letting them out of their contract.
We're letting us in.
They're letting us in.
They're letting us.
Yeah. And then, but that's the next thing. It would be, is it August 6th? Well, August 6th will be the newest pickup.
Right,
Yes, no more money. In fact, that's on the next thing.
13-100 in your packet?
the contract with Waste Management goes through 7/31. I don't know how that fits in the days of the week and that works, but that's,
That's what it's.
so, the 31st, so whatever the first pickup is.
Right, but it would be,
Because you and I,
Yeah, so the contract ends the 31st of July, and the new contract starts August 1st, but the first pickup, I think,
Is the
is
sixth.
till the Tuesday, which is the 6th. And we will also be, we'll be notifying all the residents by way of postcard, saying that they'll all have Tuesday pickup, and the residents on the west side will also be told that their recycling will be moved to Wednesday. So on your side of town, you'll have Wednesday pickup for your recycling. So we'll have a nice postcard, maybe put some signs up.
That's it. It's nice and easy. WW, West Side on Wednesday.
West Side on
Won't be
Wednesday.
any confusion anymore.
So that would be resolution 13-100. is going to be amending the resolution authorizing a shared service. This changes the date on the contract. I believe the solicitor from Mount Ingham made a few small changes. So we're reauthorizing what we had already signed. So this hopefully will get it done.
If I may have a question.
Sure, please.
Then on the revised interlocal
Yes.
that was red line T's and I's or whatever that was, can we just authorize that? Or do we need a whole new document?
No,
We
we
can
can-
say with the new date and then we cross over it, or do we
You
need another?
can do it either way. You can certainly, you can authorize it, and you can either
Initially.
initial that, or you can just ask
Or they
for
can-
a clean copy and ultimately execute that one. But we can
Okay, so we don't need to wait until the new.
That's correct.
Updated document.
Because they've already signed that, right?
Well, yes, but they have to change it also because it'll have the new date. Basically, and if I could just recap this for a moment, our present contract says that with proper notice, that we can get out of the contract. It was clearly in there, and we felt that rather than arguing until the date anyway, that it was best to go with this route. So we had originally, before we knew that they were making an issue out of it, had presented the interlocal for you to sign. Then we found out of their concern and their issue. So when we
This is waste management.
waste management's issue. So when we received the revised package, it was corrected or updated by one of the entities. They asked us to sign it again, and on Len's place, we couldn't do that because now we knew that we had a date issue, so we couldn't sign it. So that brings us back to the point now they have to correct the dates, and then we'll be all good to go. So.
And we've talked about all that.
Yes, I suppose I sent a copy over to Joe, Sienna there. So.
We have a little bit of work to do in the next month to get it.
Right.
We have to let people know
Right.
what's going on in the
Right,
Okay.
we use a little bit of signage all the time.
So hopefully that, so whatever makes it work faster. The Belmont's right down the road, I'm sure.
And we found out, Richard and I, that when Steve came in from Belmont, Steve follows their trash truck.
Yes.
And if they throw a can or everything else, they're decided to bellows. They don't want any, they have,
Good.
yes.
Great.
Under supervision. So hopefully that'll get us through this, and there should be a tremendous savings from doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Resolution appointing summer recreation counselors, there's a list of them on there. There's an amendment that was just brought, because the program has gone to 6 weeks from 4 weeks, the director is paid a flat salary fee per week, so that would be amended to $1,800, correct?
18? That was 15 to 18.
15 to 18, there's 6 weeks.
Oh, it's 4 weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 weeks.
And then you see the counselors on the left. This is something that was resolution amending the resolution regarding signing of court checks. This is our cash plan that we do at the beginning of every year. Rich, you like to please let everybody know what we're doing here?
Right. In the past, we had 2 full-time certified employees in the court, and we also had the judge. And at some point in time, I think, Joyce, how many years did you say that resolution went back when you looked it up? At least a decade or so. It always said that it would be done this way. The problem is that with only 1 certified person in the court right now, that in order to get the second signed check, you have to hunt down the judge or wait for the judge. And they are required to turn over their payments by the 10th of the month. And also, on top of that, if someone comes in for bail, they should be able to get a quick refund because they paid it and they met their obligations, so they shouldn't have to wait until we can get a hold of that second signer. I had requested a couple alternate, I guess, internal control checks in order to keep the comfort level. And the court, the AOC, Regina, who's our rep, advised me that there was no requirement to have that second check signer, and that my request to see any of the stuff on the sacred side of the court was denied, which I'm fine with because I don't need any more headaches. But ultimately, she said other towns have 1 signer, and she was comfortable with the internal controls in the court, and she reviews them often. So with that said, you know, I'm comfortable also, and the auditors didn't require it, so it was kind of left up to us. So for the benefit of the people receiving the checks and so they can meet their timeliness, I think it was also recommended in their annual court monitoring that we go down to 1 signature.
Yeah, so you
Just
can
give
come
them
in
time.
and see her for one of our courts, and this was some of the items that were brought So this is just something, this is housekeeping, but before, I think the idea of having 2 signatures doesn't allow one person to have this unlimited control. But if the AOC feels that it's okay, and Mr.
I asked them if there was
okay.
any other alternates, and they said, sure, we could hire a second person in the
Yes.
court, so I think.
So just to make everyone clear, we only have court twice a month, this way it'll help move things along. I think it'll make our court flow very happy. So that was something that was added on, I think it's a positive. Ordinance creating the position of record support technician. This is the police side. We are a civil service community now, so we must have titles for everything. This is a non-competitive title, correct? Am I saying it right?
Correct, it's classified 9.
It's classified.
So it's
non-competitive,
record support 1, it should have a 1.
which means that
It does have it in the manufacturer.
As a 1? Okay,
it's a 1.
okay.
Record support technician 1 is actually in the ordinance, it's
It's
just
in the
not in the
ordinance.
Well, this is what we're going to be adding.
Right.
And what this allows us to do is basically to move forward. The plan from last year was to have 2 part-time clerks so that we would be able to cover the hours to maintain the window open. And I think it's a positive thing, but we are required to have this classified.
But the reason that this issue popped up is because our title was, I believe, senior court clerk, senior police clerk, and civil service is in the process of consolidating and migrating titles. So they basically sent out a letter that said, all of these titles are now this title. So while we already had the person in previously, having the new person and getting them into the civil service system, we have to have actually codified that title in order to make everything show up.
Some more else.
Yes, and there'll be a lot of civil service housekeeping in
Yes.
coming years.
Yes. So hopefully that'll clarify some things. We have an ordinance creating, discussion of Harry Williams Building fees ordinance. Can we all turn to that page? This is something we all need to discuss a little bit.
1316.
The committee, 1316, the committee got together, and this is a recommendation that was slightly changed when it went through the administrator's office. So I don't know if everyone had a look at it. Just to run down, the previous ordinance allowed for the use of the building at a $150 initial fee, and then $5 for every day after that. So what we've done here is that last year it started off that this was not adequate to maintain the building. Borough does subsidize this property, but this would help to offset some of the cost, because the biggest cost that we have, except for utilities and maintenance, is opening and closing the doors. So hopefully this will help offset the cost. So what we have is we've got the borough affiliated organizations exempt, which is basically the Runnemede Youth Organization, Camden County Freeholders and their entities, the Runnemede Seniors, the borough-sponsored or co-sponsored events. So those are borough-sanctioned entities, they would be exempt. St. Teresa, which would be classified as a non-profit. Now, why are we putting the names of the organizations? We want to put,
That's how I was getting to it.
Well, because
You don't want that.
you're doing something for them, and you're not doing everybody else, so I guess you have.
you think that's okay then?
Absolutely.
Okay. So St. Teresa, obviously a church and a parish or community, they would be given, they wouldn't have to pay the initial $150, they would just simply pay $25 for each day for the use. They've already been spoken to, they feel that this is, they maintain their basketball program, their volleyball program, they do not have a gym, and this is not outrageous, so for the $25, it'll allow for the building to be open, closed, cleaned, and maintained, and hopefully at a better level than it was in the past after we organized the next one. Then Runnemede-based nonprofit organizations. Those would be any, once again, self-explanatory. So if they wanted to use the building for an event, they would just simply pay $100. And then nonprofit group not based in Runnemede, $250. Now this building, just to clarify, we went when we were the deputy fire chief, this building holds 400 people. So for $250 for a building that holds 400 people, in terms of the heat on, the electrical on, and maintaining it, it's not bad. And then, of course, there's the refundable security deposit. In the past, we've had problems with bathroom fixtures and things like that. So it has been.
Yeah, so all the groups, you're gonna charge $300 for refundable security deposit.
All the groups. Well, no, excuse me. The RY always pays the security deposit. The We never made the seniors or any of those. I don't know if we need to clarify that. Yeah, in the county, we never made them.
Toilets and all.
St. Teresa's always paid.
St. Teresa's always paid.
And Women's Club's added.
Do we need to clarify
I
that?
think we should be all right there.
Yes.
Yeah, they always have.
RY fees.
Yeah, we actually had to use it this year.
Yeah.
Something done.
Well,
But now, with
So-
RY uses the building most of the time, they have the longest program.
Yes.
But, now, I have no problem with giving it to them for free, but I think they ought to do some cleaning or something.
Well, if we keep,
Maintenance problem.
that's in this, I think, is it, or it's not in here?
no.
We'll read the whole thing quickly. All of them have to provide insurance. And that all ordinance must receive written approval from the borough clerk after approval from the recreation director. The borough clerk shall be responsible for receiving, processing requests for use, maintaining schedule, verifying insurance and appropriate fees paid. The recreation director shall have final approval for all requested uses and schedule. The borough reserves the right to deny any and all requests and may change the schedule as it deems necessary. Just let you guys know about that kind of thing is when we have special elections, when the county asks that they work the property for the board workers, things like that. We've always bumped whoever was using it. In the next part, it does ask for the,
That's just in reference, the next part's just in reference to the deposit, though.
So you need,
leaves facility in unclean condition. So we are saying leaves facility. What we can do is, this is the ordinance that's only for the rates. We can then set a policy that would talk about hours, opening and closing, who gets first right to schedule the building. This just allows us, because right now, we've got people backed up wanting to start the schedule for the next year. This will allow us to at least collect the fees and start to set the schedule. And then once we start doing that, we can then sit there and say, well, we expect you to empty out all the trash cans. We expect you to sweep the floor. We expect the lights. Well, I think the next part of our discussion, we may have a person who may turn the lights off and lock the doors. So I think that we can do a policy that doesn't necessarily have to be an ordinance, Len, is that correct?
yeah, that's great. I would just think, you might want to, where it says refundable security deposit, I would consider putting a comma there. Not exempt organizations, comma, except RYAA.
Oh, okay.
That incorporates what you just said. RYA still pays the security deposit, but the other exempts do
You
not.
got that?
Nothing. The other exams done. Okay.
The other
That's
example.
what you just said, so that's a quick shorthand
By
way.
using exempt, you're accepting them from everything, so you put that in there and it won't.
So the RY will still pay.
Right, they'll still pay.
The freeholders and the seniors aren't going to.
Right, the borough-sponsored events, the surrounding seniors and county freeholders and county entities are not. Now, RYA is, and then everybody else is. And I'm just, these are words.
Yes.
So you're never renting it to a for-profit.
We had that in there and from our
And
insurance.
that's okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that everybody gets
I
that.
mean, we could still talk about that later, but there was a lot of concerns from the insurance
And our
aspect
fire
of it.
marshal also.
Our fire marshal had concern because of the.
No, I think this is the better move, but I just want to make sure everybody realizes that.
We don't want to compete against, the fire hall does rent the
Yeah,
property out.
well, it's good fun. It's good fun.
Yeah, so we eliminated for-profit. The other thing, since we are bringing up in the part about the insurance, should we exempt the nonprofits excluding the RYA? Should we say basically the same thing? Because RYA has always been asked for insurance.
Freeholders give us insurance.
Insurance, the freeholders do this.
The women's club always, we always
And
have.
it's not an issue.
And if it's a borough-sponsored event, you are in, so you have to get insurance for yourself. So you don't need to change it.
Okay, we don't need to worry about it. So I think we can kick this back to the committee again to start working on the policy for the property. So the policy would be when the doors can be open,
Oh, yeah,
when the doors are closed.
Did you get this amendment, Joyce, to this?
But the,
Refundable security deposit comment, not exempt organizations.
except our.
Except RYA, all right? Okay. Sorry.
So the only part that, like I said, if you were to put something in between here, is so policies, we need to create policies for the Harrow Williams Village still. And then we should also talk about if we're going to create a individual to open and close the door. A little history, we've used class 2 police officers to open and close the door. They did not maintain the property. They simply opened and closed it, made sure there was no damage done to the property.
Put the lights on.
The
Put the
lights on.
lights
We've used the
on,
Public
put the
Works
lights on.
Department to open and close the facility in the past. And they did some maintenance though, after,
Yes.
cleaning after that. And I think that the discussion that the committee has had is the creation of a,
Caretaker.
we need some kind of a title to allow us to create somebody who will open the door, turn the lights on, make sure the property is adequate.
Custodian, basically.
Custodian, and then come back at the end of the rental and turn the lights off, turn the heat off, to make sure that the property is.
I'll tell you, if you've ever, Governor, I'm sure you've heard it too, when we're in the senior citizens area, for a meeting at Galvin dinners, when there's little leaks in there playing, they're running up and down the hallway where the bathrooms are, carrying on, banging on the wall. And you can't hear in that room because of the children. So whichever the grown-ups are out there, they're not watching the kids.
Well, I don't think we're looking for a custodian open and close. I think we still have that responsibility of the people who are renting it have to have be quiet, enjoy, yeah.
And when the RMI basketball was in there, Maria took care of that.
Yeah. And she stayed there.
Yeah, well, yeah, she was there.
But there has to be consideration for other people.
Well, I hate to say it, but it's really, you can't hear it.
Yeah, the person we're gonna get there is not gonna have to sit there while the event's going on. That's gonna be up to the organization.
I can remember when we used to have to pay for a police officer to be
Right.
there when we had an affair.
Yeah,
And we had whoever had the affair had to pay for the police.
we're trying to
I
avoid
know.
having that much money being put into,
Somebody just sit there.
Well, I believe that if you do have something, like we used to have beef and beers there. at
Yes.
one time. Our Y used to do it, the borough used to do it.
Rotary.
We're required to have a police officer there. That's the nighttime, anything with alcohol, we're
And
required.
that's by
well, I think
statute.
that should go to the renter, and they would have to put that into their
To tell you the truth, like, people have stopped having beef and beers.
Oh, yeah.
No one has it because of the
Liability.
the DUI and the liability that's been associated with it. So it hasn't been an issue. But there used to be a special clause that I would put in the contract requiring them to get their own. There's also insurance they can obtain for it, and that where they use alcohol.
So we should look into the policy, and the policy should segue into possibly this custodian type of title. The original title we came up with was, the committee was assistant director. And that was a little bit convoluted because if we're on a committee, we're sort of directors anyway, so that's why we needed to kind of simplify.
Custodian.
Well, I came up with the building administrator or facility manager.
Anything
Oh, I like
else?
facility manager.
And he'll have to do cleaning up too.
The one thing you want to steer it towards,
So
you're not-
you're not deciding that.
No, we're not deciding this.
We're not hiring a janitor.
Okay, that's what
right,
I'm
we need to be
saying.
careful that we create like a stipend for a specific purpose versus a title that ends up civil service and, you know what I mean, so.
So
that-
stipend for a purpose.
And this way, just have it reflect the, you know, whether it's quarterly or something like that. But that's my only concern is when you're wording it, if the title falls into something that's civil service related, then that's.
You've
like
created
we have
a
to-
position.
Yes, so,
So we'll have to take that into consideration.
and that'll definitely require consult with the labor side to make sure they're doing that. So-
He said facility manager.
That's better, because a custodian is just somebody that.
Yeah, that's
protects
what-
the guards.
So you're talking about more of a stipend type of thing, so.
You might need to be more generic than that.
Okay, we'll talk. So that is, at least we can get through the fees. Was there any question on the fees though? Does everyone see that the fees they're not exorbitant? Discussion of the deputy registrar of vital statistics position. We, because of the current retirement of our deputy registrar, we are required to have a deputy registrar. We have no one at this current time that is qualified. We're going to the employees to ask if any of them want to become certified. But in the interim, we did reach out to Barrington again, and their registrar was willing to be our backup for a quarterly stipend of $150 a quarter. And the only time we would use that is when our registrar, which is Ms. Pinto, would be on vacation, sick, or not in the building. They would print the death certificates. You want to be more elaborate on this?
They would be able to electronically print the death certificates from Barrington. She would be able to do that. So that would not be an issue.
So gardeners would just go over to Barrington.
Or Janowski's would go to Barrington to do that.
If Joyce was on vacation.
flies on vacation. But we
It's,
need,
what's gonna make you train somebody?
Well, what it is, we had one.
You want to let Joyce explain the process?
the process is they have to take 4 classes, they have to pass a state exam, and then they would be qualified. They're actually, can I say that somebody was interested? Somebody has expressed interest, and I gave her the requirements, and I asked her to get back to me, and she was not back.
But this is only a 6-month agreement.
Correct, it's only until December 31st.
Yeah, but, I mean, we get somebody in right away, I mean,
Well, they're not, they would have to get trained.
yeah.
The classes aren't at any time, they're only certain times.
Oh, well,
They can't do it right away, either.
Well, before we went to Barrington, we did go to the employees first.
We have one person that's interested.
And one was interested, and then it was clear that the person needed to need these classes and take the test. But at this point, starting, actually right now, July 1st, we will be without a deputy. So what this resolution will allow us to do, at least from July 1st to December 31st, for $300, we would be able to have somebody back up when Joyce is not available. But I agree with you, though, that if someone would take the interest and get certified, who's already in the borough working,
well, that's what we need.
I think that would be a better opportunity.
Well, we don't know that anybody will be interested. So far, we will only have one. And when given the criteria, she has not responded, whether or not she's willing to do all that's necessary to become the deputy. So I don't know.
And when you put this together for next week, in your allocation of payments, you wrote the word 600?
Yeah,
I-
600.
16.
Okay, so that's why I sent it to the lawyer. Thank you. But that's it. That was what I came up with, and I thought it was a very reasonable
Yeah,
amount of money, and it might work and it might not work. If it doesn't, then we have to look.
the amount of money that we were paying for our deputy presently was $1,500 a year. That's an additional cost to their salary. So this is actually a little bit lower, but the person's not in their office.
Yeah.
So it's not quite the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But the benefit, if you have somebody that's internal that decides that they would do that for that 1,500 or so, is good. But you can't post that in the newspaper and expect somebody to come in and be able to do all
No,
this for
I understand.
1,500. So that's where, if you don't have the internal person that's willing to do
It's
that
either the internal
without,
person or transfer.
you know, raising that amount to get to the point where it raises somebody's eyebrow and says, okay, for that much, I'll do it, then we have limited options. So that's why we're.
I'd rather have see somebody here.
But that was posted over about a month ago on the bulletin boards internally, so.
The last thing on the items is discussion of purchase of the generators. This started last year in the 2012 bond, 11 bond. There was money set aside, or maybe this was sewer bond money. Sewer money?
This is sewer.
This is sewer operation. The idea was we have 6 pump stations in the community. 2 of them are not backed up by generators. We had 1 portable that runs around, and one of the 2 is bad. We used to have 4 that didn't have backup generators. So this would allow us, we have a low bid right now of
21,110.
a low bid of $21,000 for 2 generators that exceed the necessary amount of electricity to run those 2 generators. They're portable, so we allow both the fire and the police department or emergency management to use these generators if we need to move them. And it would also allow us to, the current generator that we have, we would be able to, as part of our office emergency management agreement with the fire company, that generator would be located at the firehouse. And so they would be our secondary backup for office emergency management until this property gets a generator. Because right now, if power went out in the borough, we would be running out of the fire company. So,
Where we have been running for the past several
we
years.
have for 86 years, yes, thank you. There was electricity back 86 years. But,
And where will the 2 generators be?
Forest and Third. I could be wrong. Well, that's that. Detmore and Third,
Detmore and Third
and
and
Forest, I think is the same.
Forest is the other.
Forest.
Is that correct?
So those 2 generators will be on call for those?
No, they will be
They
located.
will be
Oh,
located
okay.
here.
They will be
So
on
they'll
the
be
switch.
permanent, permanent but portable.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
Permanent but portable.
So if the power doesn't go out on that side of the town, they can move them somewhere else.
And security.
Yes.
Oh, security is a big issue.
Yeah. Basically, that was part of our future planning and making it better, that basically we had one that could go back and forth, but couldn't be at both places at the same time. That one far exceeded the necessary capabilities since we've upgraded our other pumping stations. So this will now make every single pumping station have its own backup generator, and then the fire department will have the capacity to, because there's a shot to run and operate during emergency situations. So it was a win-win around the block.
Now, we're just purchasing the two, and that's 21,000?
Correct.
It's not bad.
We got a good buy.
Well, it's not on the agenda, but since we don't have reports, but I'd like to let the administrator do his report first. This is something that he's going to start doing for us, I believe, and help us out. And did you want to do it now?
Can I just do this one thing that's on the?
This way, because it encompasses a lot of what everybody would do.
I'm sorry, I missed one in the packet, in the agenda. Planning board secretary?
Oh, yes.
There was an agreement back on May the 9th to increase planning board secretary salary to $1,500.
Which is up from what? It was up from, well,
$1,340.
It says $160.
That's one for.
Just to let you know, for that amount of money, the individual comes to 12 planning board meetings and works the window during normal hours for the planning. I think it's.
Just to clarify, I've talked about doing this for a bit, and the way that it falls out, I usually do verbal reports through bullets. And it's all of the items that I touch on are also touched on by all council, because I operate with all of your departments. So basically, this is just a memorialization for my files and for your files and for the mayor, et cetera, and the directors to know what's going on, the interactions between. Many items on here will be a duplicate, and I might not even read the whole point, just discuss it, because I don't want to step on top of your reports, but it's just basically what I'm running through. But that's the origin of putting it in writing, similar to the way that Bach does it every meeting. But so basically, it's department briefs, going through finance, personnel, and administration. The biggest issues we have are the employees retiring as of June 30th. Department of Finance, we have Ralphine Deacon, 14.6 years of service. Dominic Brown, Police Department, 21.6 years with the Borough, and 25 total. Robert Christensen, Police Department, 25 years as of the end of the month. The severance payment certifications will be processed by Finance as of June 30th and presented for action at the meeting of the 2nd. And then basically when everybody goes through their checklist, hands in their keys and all their equipment, then the checks will be released, so at the next payroll. With regards to holidays, I'm just going to mention the ones that impact us as they're coming up, so everyone's aware of it. Basically, 4th of July, the main office is going to be closed up front. Another item that's of significance is August 13th, upcoming, there's other dates. Also, October 16th for a special election for Frank Lautenberg. Again, it's kind of falls into Joyce's territory, but we have received a request from Volt School to change the process. They want to, for security reasons, to move the polling into the back gym. Basically, there's a process for that, which the borough clerk is working with the school and the county board of elections.
And this follows with what Triton had done years ago. If you all remember, when you voted at Triton High School, you used to go through the doors for the main office. They moved us to the back gym because they've segregated us from the rest of the children.
Right.
So the Bolts now is following that. Mr. Lenucci, I think, has seen that this is a deficiency, he's trying to fix it.
Correct.
It's a good idea.
Right. I don't think it'll be in place for the
Not the money for the August election, but I spoke to Mr. Ianucci today. He will be sending a letter to me, which I will forward to the Board of Elections, requesting this to be changed. They will come down and actually inspect the facility, and if they're okay. They don't think it'll be a problem, but as long as there's access for everyone with that.
Right, okay. On the public events, obviously, Councilwoman Passy has been very, very busy. We have the 4th of July parade coming up. I will leave that for her report. I'm sure we'll have something on that. Free water race for all the kids.
Really?
Other parks and recreation on the agenda, and we'll also touch on agenda items. The program starts July 1st, excluding the 4th and 5th, through August 9th. On the council, we have the appointment for 10 summer rec counselors and 1 lifeguard, and as of today, at the end of today, we have 46 registrations in so far. Under public safety, attended the public safety committee meeting with Director Kelly for the month of June. We've also authorized the immediate state contract purchase of a Dodge Charger, and Captain Daly will be handling that. Public Works, Hirsch Lake, obviously we had an incident involving goldfish, as it turns out. Public Works did a great job of doing the cleanup of about 1,000 or 1,200 pounds of dead fish. After talking with the reps from New Jersey Fish and Wildlife, any remaining fish should be left for nature to take its course, and the animals, et cetera, will take care of those. Also, with regards to that, the Camden County Department of Health responded and tested the water, and basically the readings were normal. There was no toxins in the water. Tax collection interlocal agreement we already went over, but basically we're entering into the settlement agreement or the termination agreement with Waste Management, and we also have the interlocal with the Mountain Permit with Belmar. CCMUA sewer main repair is completed. A replacement of the 42-inch pipe was installed on Friday, June 21st. Basically, it was tested over the weekend. The 42-inch bypass remained in service throughout the weekend, and the new section of pipe was tested for leaks, and all the line stops were removed. Basically, everything is finished, and there was no sewage spilled during the process. So we went from, everyone can have their own opinions, and they can take their credits. But I think that we went from having 7 to 8 million gallons of raw sewage pumping through our neighborhoods down to nothing was spilled. So I think that was a win-win for Borough. So, and we also received a swale. Public Works.
I think one of the things that's important to note on this, had we not had that borough meeting and made an issue of it before the CCMUA, and they've seen the problems that would arise and all the people that came out that night. That's when they told us there was no alternatives, and a week later they found an alternative. So I think it's important that we always keep in mind that citizens have the right to speak up, and people will listen. So it's important that we got the message out, got it in the newspapers, and had the people hear that.
Agreed. That was OEM A to Z worked on that, so everyone involved.
Does anybody want to, obviously, at the council meeting, I'm hoping everyone will get a report on their departments. Was there anything anybody wanted to bring up now that we might need action on before Tuesday night? Is there anything that we want to add to this? Don't tend to like to walk things on unless it's something that's really important.
Oh, can you bring this up?
You can bring that.
Yes. Councilwoman Pasco and I attended the certificate of recognition for the borough contributing money towards the fireworks for Barrington, and they presented us with a very, a very nice certificate stating how much they appreciate, and it possibly could be the last fireworks that they have, because their main backer is a little on the fence. So it's nice that we've contributed, and they couldn't have been more appreciative to the borough overall for us contributing $1,000 that we did for the fireworks.
How come it wasn't brought up to us and voted on?
Mr. Wright, do you want to take that?
That was never brought up to us, there was nothing here, and no resolution, no nothing. And I thought when we spend money, it has to be voted on.
So was there a resolution last year?
Nope, this year's don't count for this year.
You want to take that question?
I will say that we have not cut a check yet. It will appear on the bill list. As far as discussion goes, I can't answer that. So
I think these were at fault.
Well, here's how, we don't vote on everything we spend money on. What we do is we adopt the
Don't you
budget.
think I've been around longer than you, Nick? I can't.
Would you explain the process, how a budget works?
Well, you took it upon yourself.
The budget is a budget, we budget an amount of money in each department. So when, I'll give you an example. Did we vote on buying a lawnmower for the public works?
They have money in the rec department to do that.
Okay, does recreation have money in its own department?
Yes.
Yeah, I know that.
Oh,
You think I'm stupid?
But then why would we have to vote on it if we had money? in
Well,
the
I think
budget?
because last year when they came to us for the first time, there was a vote and a
We did not
resolution.
vote.
Yes, it was.
Twice?
I voted no.
There is no vote. There's no resolution
Okay.
and no
No,
vote.
it- What happened
Say that.
was,
There was no vote, but you said before.
but that's the
any
clerk,
money-
she's the custodian of records, and she says that there
Oh,
was no
but
vote.
I
yet.
forgot, I don't know nothing.
I didn't say that.
No, you always say that, so I don't want to hear it.
Since the last year, if you recall, since you want me to bring it up,
I
Mr.
said-
Beatrice went to Barrington with Mr. Kishaleski to talk to them about their court sharing services.
I
with
know,
the
I was
court,
there.
And you were there, and at the time, they brought up Runnemede sharing the fireworks with them.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes,
And
I
how much
do.
money did they ask us for?
$1,000.
They asked us for $4,000.
They went down to 1,000.
They went with $4,000. They then came back and through the recreation department, asked me and said, there was a misunderstanding. They didn't mean to tell Mr. Beatrice and you $4,000. They were only looking for a sponsor of $1,000. It was brought up in public discussion here in council. And Mr. Beatrice and everyone said that it seemed like a good idea. There was no resolution passed, there was no ordinance passed. Mr. Wright certified that there was money in the recreation budget, and no one on council had any problem last year doing the $1,000. We once again spoke about it
I said that.
briefly, that's fine, you're allowed to say no. And it was briefly brought up, the recreation thought that it was a positive thing, it coincides with our parade events, it coincides with the fact that we're working together with them. And we gave them $1,000, and hopefully all our residents will go out.
You know, but I just still, and it was, I did just do things in a sneaky way. Nothing was said to me.
Are you in the financing?
I'm not on nothing, you took me off everything.
You are
Let's
the
get it-
mayor.
Let's get,
You
let's
are the
get
mayor.
it straight, you took me off
The
everything.
mayor, you choose not to be more involved.
But not, I didn't choose it, you choose to go support me.
You
That's
can
what's
ask- you can ask for reports from anybody. You can
I
ask
don't
for a
go
report from
interfere.
me.
I don't go interfere with your meetings on Monday. I don't walk in that office, listen. And I don't, if I walk into any of your meetings when you're having them, you can't have them because I'll be the fourth
You would
person.
make a quorum, yes.
So these would be out of the meeting. And I know that.
But you could call a meeting anytime you like.
Why, we do me any good?
Since I made the decision to pay the $1,000 out of my budget. So you get mad at me because
I'm mad at Nick because he does it every time he wants, he does them.
it came to me as a recreation and I approved.
Well, as the director has some latitude in the budget. You should know about that, Mr. White. You do know that the director has latitude. So please, make sure that,
I know,
Mr.
Mr.
Root
Root
is allowed to have that latitude to make that
I
decision.
just hope we have enough money that we don't tax our people like crazy.
I agree with you.
Because
We
we're
introduced the
gonna have a
budget.
big lawsuit, you know that as much as I do.
From who?
$1,000 isn't gonna break the bank.
Well, $1,000 is $1,000, though.
I understand that. Absolutely, I get that. But I feel like we always talk about setting a precedent, and the precedent was set under the last people that were in office that said it was okay. So why is it such an issue now? I don't get it. Anyway, I think it's kind of taking the wind out of the sails that we're sharing this with them, and they're very
Why don't you
happy
read
to
it?
have us.
Maybe everyone should hear what it says.
It says, whereas each year the Borough of Barrington desires to put on a fireworks display to celebrate our nation's Independence Day as part of the 4th of July festivities, and whereas each year it is becoming increasingly more difficult to continue to provide a fireworks display because of rising costs and budgetary constraints, and whereas Councilwoman Nicholson reached out to the Borough of Runnemede to see if they would be interested in contributing to the cost of the fireworks and inviting their community to attend our fireworks show. And whereas the Borough of Runnemede happily agreed and provided a generous donation in the amount of $1,000 to the Borough of Barrington towards the cost of the fireworks. Now, therefore, the governing body of the Borough of Barrington hereby extends gratitude and appreciation to the Borough of Runnemede for their generous donation and hopes this is the beginning of many shared services between our two communities. We look forward to enjoying the fireworks show with the residents of Runnemede.
Should we send them a letter back and say we don't want to do this with them? We haven't sent them a check.
It's a little late for it.
Sis, I don't understand. I don't understand what you're getting at with this.
I was not even aware of it.
But this is, we cannot meet, we can only meet as a group publicly
Well,
when we advertise.
Did
We
anybody
have
say
committees.
anything to me? No. You could have said something.
Do I have to report to you on everything I do?
No, you don't.
Well, you should.
But I
advise.
It was an email sent out to everybody to go to the meeting. I didn't hide it from nobody, so if we don't check our emails, I'm sorry.
Did you check your email?
I don't have a computer now.
Okay.
I haven't had it for a couple of weeks.
So how do you check your email?
I don't.
Who checks your email?
They had to take a piece out of my computer because the computer where the girls broke.
I check the emails.
You check the emails for the mayor?
But I haven't gotten any.
Yeah, I put one in your box, says what?
One email.
One of yours. Yeah.
But,
We have to run the business of the borough here. I'm
oh, I know
sorry.
that, Nick. I'm so sorry. You have
Well, if you want to be
business.
more involved in it, you
But-
can.
Like, I don't do anything?
It's up to you. You can do what you like. All right, that was fun. Good and welfare. This portion of the meeting is open to the public. Anyone wishing to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name and address.
Al Colasano, 831 North Oakland Avenue. Just a question. Are you aware that the ground wires have been removed from the poles? Someone came along and stripped the copper.
I found out about it the other day.
In what
The wires that
location?
are on the poles along Central Ave, I was told, was part of it.
Oh.
They're stealing the protective cover over the poles that,
These are PSC&G wires?
Yes.
yes.
Wow.
And down
I think
there.
was that reported to the police department? Would you like to give us a little report and say what happened?
It's currently under investigation with several other thefts. We're not going any further, but it should be solved shortly.
Okay.
Someone had mentioned to us, would it help if we had an ordinance that made it illegal for scrappers?
We do have an ordinance.
We
It's,
do have.
We do. We have an ordinance that does not allow people to drive around and
Oh.
scrap. For a while there, we were enforcing it a little bit. I don't know if it's been as aggressive.
Well, we brought this up before. We do enforce it, but we explained to Mr. Gunn that they need to post a sign with the ordinance at every entrance of the borough. So when people go from town to town, they say, you're not allowed to trash pick or scrap or whatever. So it allows them. So when they come to court, if they don't know it, some towns allow it.
They don't.
Some towns allow it, some towns don't. And the judge,
Well, if we have an
So
ordinance
you've
in
had problems
town,
with the judge indicating that he wasn't satisfied that. they
that's
had-
correct.
So that's the way to solve that.
So it's all.
And it's solved, and that's what he basically said, if the town just puts some signs that you're not allowed to scrap. And I believe, Nick, we spoke about this a while ago, because he said like Barrington made like $15,000 off of scrap revenue.
But how's that gonna solve somebody, a thief that's,
It's not.
it's.
Basically, what it does, Pat, it gives a little teeth to it. So when the people are written up, we dealt with two last night. And even though they paid $33 court costs, if we would have had that sign up there, we could have fined them maybe $200-300 because they knew, or should have known, that by them going around and scrapping was illegal. So if we would have put the sign on Easham Road and Black Horse and Easham and Clements Bridge and Black Horse and the Turnpike and Clements Bridge Road, we could add to
Metal
it.
out, hoping somebody would come and pick it up.
People go around, they go to each town, and then each town's trash pickup. And these guys drive around and they start picking up scrap. And then they find out what towns have ordinances.
But some of the problems though with picking up scrap is they pick up other things. At my
White
own property
goods,
now.
like you said, the white goods, we had that discussion before. You said like Barrington made $15,000, off of that. That's a lot of cash for something like that.
We recycle them, yeah. No, and it's definitely a problem because people take advantage of scrapping. They actually go and take other things. And that's where of what I've experienced.
We lost a drill bit up on Irish Hill Road. It was like 600 pounds. I still don't know how they actually got into a car. But the guy did. He got into a car, a station wagon.
You caught him?
Yes, we did.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing no one else, is there a motion to close the public portion? All in favor? Okay. Do we have any other business before we close the meeting? Okay then. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
All